Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. In 2017, the New York State Legislature adopted a new juvenile justice law called Raise the Age. It had to, almost out of shame, since it and North Carolina were the only two states in the country still charging 16-year-olds as adults. My guests today, and I have a lot of them, represent a partnership between the Public Science Project at the CUNY Graduate Center, the Youth Represent, and the Children's Defense Fund, all longtime advocates for reform. Brett Stout, on my right, is a psychology professor at the CUNY Graduate Center. Julia Davis is Director of Youth Justice and Child Welfare at the Children's Defense Fund. Maya Williams is a Master of Public Administration candidate at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And Kate Rubin is Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at Youth Represent. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
So, we're talking about Raise the Age. Raise the Age is a group of people who got together to raise the age this time. But is that a historic term, Raise the Age? How long has that been going on?
It's a term that has been used in many jurisdictions around the country, that have fought to raise the age of juvenile prosecution or raise the age of adult prosecution higher than it was. So it's being used now in places around the country to talk about raising the age way higher than 18, up to 21, even 24, 25.
Right. So it's important because raising the age is we've learned so much more, right? We're also dependent, I think, on a different view about what it means to do you use the word incarcerate?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. What it means to incarcerate people. Mm-hmm. Instead of punishing, we want to help them develop, and especially with young people. Mm-hmm. And then as psychologists, they found also different things about the brain.
Yep.
Right?
All of this work is changing because we've seen a real consensus in the field, whether it's psychology, sociology, and the research is showing us what many of us as parents and community members already know, which is that young people don't magically become independent at 18. We really continue to mature into the middle 20s. And as that evolution happens, our criminal justice system really has to respond. And so that's really what Raise the Age and other efforts by the people with you today are really focusing on. How do we adjust our youth systems to recognize young people continue to develop and that they really need the supports and skills to operate in a world successfully for our community safety and really for their own benefit. And that means reducing the types of things that we've been talking about, incarceration, reducing contact with the system that generally produces really bad outcomes for young people.
It's so overwhelming in a way because you know that, it's common sense also. I think that people lose sight of the fact that policy is really can be made with common sense. Mm-hmm. The poverty, the poor education, the bad housing, employment,
right.
It's all part of it. And so does raising that issue make people more compassionate?
I think people begin to really look at the criminal justice system as one where we really see communities of color and poor communities overrepresented. Those are the kids that end up in court and inside of our prisons, inside of our jails. And so we need to think about how we change that system to make it more effective at actually serving people and also reduce the way that we touch children and families and really try and divert more people away from contact with the criminal justice system.
Yeah. And as you say, you pointed to the idea of a circuits of dispossession. We're trying to look at a more holistic structural system as well as the way the young people move through it.
Mm-hmm. So not only are we maybe getting more compassionate policymakers and the troops behind them, but also the more conservative people are concerned about the cost, right?
Right, and the cost of, we know the costs of any incarceration are incredibly high, and you could always use that money better on education services, but that is exponentially more true for youth. So if it costs $30 or $40 or $50,000 a year to lock up an adult, it costs $60, $70, $80, $100,000 a year to lock up a child. And what you could do for a child by investing $100,000 a year in that child, in education and the full range of supports that middle and upper class children do already get, is you could have a world and communities that are infinitely better, safer, stronger, and little or no incarceration at all.
So, were you shocked with the Barnard student and the 13-year-old? What? Tell me. I mean, now a public defender is his lawyer.
Right.
I used to do a lot of work up at Bedford Hills.
Oh, but,
And every time I walked in there, that's a facility for women. Every time I walked in there, I'd think, there before the grace of God goes me, I. And when you hear of a 13-year-old with a crowd, and I just, what do you do?
I mean, and right now there's so much more that's unknown about that case than known, right? We know that there has been a 13-year-old arrested, and we don't know any of the sort of details beyond that, including what, if any, actual role that child had. And we know there are other young people too. I mean, I think that that case brought, it sort of, there have been so many comparisons to the Central Park 5 case because it's a shocking and horrible, tragic event. It's horrible for the young woman, her family, that community. It's
both
a devastating
both
loss.
families, terrible loss.
And there's just a lot of uncertainty about what happened. And I think and hope that in this case, much more trepidation and cautious, good caution about proceeding.
So where is a child like that being held? Do you know?
So a child like that who's being charged as a juvenile delinquent in the family court system, if they're in secure detention, they're in a place called Crossroads, which is one of the facilities that's operated here in the city. And I think it's important when we think about sort of some of the changes over the last couple of years in New York. One of the biggest changes is that we removed 16 and 17-year-olds off of Rikers Island. That was one of the biggest changes of Raise the Age. And what we are beginning to see, not only with Raise the Age, but in the years preceding that, is a real reduction in youth crime in New York. What we're seeing are fewer arrests, fewer kids in detention, and a system that's shrinking. And for all the reasons that you raised, that's really the right direction. And part of Raise the Age capitalized on that by beginning to think about how we reduce the number of kids who are in detention, how we got all of young people, all teenagers out of adult jails, not just in New York City, but statewide. So adult jails are places where teenagers are extremely vulnerable to physical assault, to sexual assault. Their mental health is often not fully addressed, their access to services. It's a very vulnerable place for young people. And so when we think about the sort of the trends in New York, some of the things that we've seen with Raise the Age are really building on progress and keeping kids safer.
Now, how many the kids, the young people from Rikers who came out? Did we have enough places for them to go? Did they go into facilities that were mixtures of programs and housing and all that?
So New York City,
They didn't all go to the same place.
In New York City, we moved all the kids off of Rikers Island before anyone else did in the state. Everyone else only had to move 16-year-olds out of the adult jail, so we had to move everybody. But because we had to move about 100 kids from Rikers Island, but because our juvenile system had shrunk, we really had the space.
Okay.
So we moved them into one facility.
And because leading up to it, the city had taken a lot of measures to expand alternative to incarceration programming, to expand the use of diversion, so that over the trend over the decade even of 16 and 17-year-olds held at Rikers had already been significantly downward from hundreds to just about 100 when Raise the Age went into effect, which made it possible to house the kids who were at Rikers in the juvenile
And were there correction officers there? Did they have special training?
So great question. So when those 16 and 17-year-olds were moved from Rikers to Horizon, which was used as what they call specialized juvenile detention to house those kids, they moved correction officers from Rikers Island to Horizon to supervise those young people. That was a move that we strongly opposed, protested, objected to. We gathered dozens and dozens of organizations, council members, other elected officials to oppose it, because we really thought it did undermine the spirit of Raise the Age to say we're removing young people from Rikers but having correction officers follow them. We worried about the culture at Horizon, which is a juvenile facility that has been run for years now by the Administration for Children's Services, and we didn't want the influence of correction officers to be there, and I think it is a continued concern.
Do you have you been there to look?
Yeah, I mean, we've
Yeah.
all been there.
And
It's one of our research questions as well.
And
so kinda-
you think,
Well, the city is shifting the correction officers out of the facility, but as Kate says, this is a continued concern about even when you pull personnel out, how does the culture change? And how does this setting really meet the needs of young people and treat them with the respect in an age-appropriate way that doesn't feel or look like the conditions on Rikers Island? And so the city is really in a transition point on
Right.
this.
now, under the new law, what are the major changes that happen other than the age? Is there a way in the system that's changed?
Yeah, all of the changes that happened really focus on the 16 and 17-year-olds who are in the system, who are arrested in New York State. And now that the law is fully in effect for 16 and 17-year-olds, if you are arrested, most likely you'll go to family court if you're 16 or 17. All misdemeanor charges, most felony charges. Most felony charges will start in adult court, but then be moved to family court. More serious felony charges each one gets a sort of individualized consideration where a judge makes a determination about whether that case should be moved to family court, and there are lots of opportunities for defense attorneys and for young people and the other advocates around them to make the case that this case would benefit from the services in family court, from the sort of perspective in family court that is much more of a youth development perspective. Do you want to cover some of the other changes?
You know, the purpose of family court, among other things, is to keep kids from walking away with an adult criminal conviction. So one of the biggest changes with Raise the Age is the fact that we can maybe serve young people without saddling them with a conviction that can derail education, housing, their ability to get a job and sort of continue their life forward. So moving to family court is huge, and we've seen the majority of kids having their cases there. Some other parts of it have to do with detention. We can't put kids in adult jails anymore. 16, 17-year-olds cannot go there if they're going to be detained. There's also a presumption in the law against detention to try and keep more kids out of that setting, because we know that really even short terms of detention aren't good for young people. And we also have new facilities where young people who are convicted in the adult court go, so that they won't be imprisoned upstate with older adults.
When a child is home and the family receives service, does that come from ACS, the Agency for Child Services?
Here in the city, kids can get services through a lot of different
places.
public agencies and also private agencies that are really more grounded in the community and have more trust and connectedness to the kids and families they serve.
And here in the city, we had already the Close to Home
Right.
program,
Right.
which allowed young people who are sentenced out of family court to, instead of going upstate to sort of what you imagine as a juvenile detention center from the 70s or 80s, they instead stay here in the city in small sort of home-like settings with 5 to 10 kids, most of them run by community-based organizations. They continue going to school here in the city. And so now 16 and 17-year-olds who are sentenced in family court will be sentenced and placed in close to home programs instead of.
And so has there been opposition to this?
Well, you know, there was opposition to the advocacy for years to get this work done. And, you know, we really stand on the shoulders of literally hundreds and thousands of people, young people, families, advocates, who got to this point. I think what has been surprising for some who were concerned about the law is how successful implementation has been. We've continued to see decreases in arrests. We've continued to be able to serve even older adolescents in the family court, which is really where they belong.
I was surprised, but I guess we could discuss that another time. But the record, what happened? There's a whole thing about record. How do you get your charge off?
Record sealing.
And where would it hurt you if it's not?
So the law did include a record sealing provision that is applicable even to adults, and that there's no retroactivity in the law, but it does, I think because there's not a retroactive provision, there is this provision that allows people who were convicted and have a record to go back and try to get it sealed. Having a criminal record, I think it's well known now how huge of a barrier that can be to education, to employment, to housing, and all kinds of other areas that you don't even expect.
Well, the city now has isn't it the city that has a law that says the employer, it can't affect it until after, which makes, I don't know. Does that work?
It does when employers follow the law, and one of the most important things we do at Youth Represent is sue employers who don't follow the law to force them to follow it. And I think that kind of enforcement does lead to, eventually people actually adopting.
And when you say education, what is it? Does the college ask you?
Some, yeah.
And do
CUNY
they
does
have to
not,
accept
but-
you before they can ask?
No, they ask on the application.
Application.
Yeah.
So do you have a list of colleges that want to take people who have been in the system?
Great
That's a
question.
good question.
We have to look at their
question.
course, right?
should
I mean,
get a
CUNY
list.
has been great, and many, many, many students at CUNY have some form of criminal justice involvement, and there are even programs at CUNY that specifically support young people. But many other schools have a lot to learn, I think, from CUNY.
So Maya, how did you get involved in all this?
So I am a master's student at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Through the curriculum, I was able to apply to become a fellow through Prisoner Reentry Institute, where I am now with Youth Represent as an advocacy fellow. So once I got on board with Kate, they obviously entered me into the Youth Justice Collaborative Group, and it's a grateful experience for me because through the MPA program at John Jay, I am studying public policy and how we hold government accountable for them being committed for integrity, transparency, and equity and fairness through the public agencies they have that are put in place to protect the public. So through the fellowship, to be able to go into the field and actually advocate for public, for social justice has been phenomenal because it blends together both that education and gives you the opportunity to experience what's really going on.
So where do you go? Give me an example.
So within the group, we are doing the participatory research in the court. So all of us are through different boroughs. I have experienced Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, and we're sitting in either family court or youth part, which has been created through Raise the Age, where we're observing how the children are treated, how the lengths of the case are going, how long they are, what actual crimes they are committing. And one of the most important things is seeing how many cases are being transferred to family court, and if it's not, why.
How do you feel when you go into these courtrooms?
Every day is a new day, and that is a part of depending on which borough you're at and which court. Some people find that family court, gives you a different feeling because maybe the outcomes may be better for the youth, but once you're in youth part, it can be the same. Once we're inside, I have when I first started, a weight on my shoulder because you don't know what the outcome for that child would be. At that time, you witness them in shackles, their families witnessing them coming out from being handcuffed, and they don't know if they're going to see them or have them come home within that short, their short time of being in front of the judge.
Can they touch them? I mean, can they give them a hug? No.
They can't. In some boroughs, you find that the parents are allowed to stand behind them just to show the judge that they do have family there supporting them. But it's not the experience that most people would believe.
And the courts differ in tone,
They definitely do.
and the judges differ in tone?
They definitely
How
do. And
often
I
are they
think
youth-friendly?
now some of them were to be trained to have that friendly behavior. But in my opinion, it's still that distance between this is a child and they should be treated as a child, whether they've committed a crime or not.
But you're learning a lot.
I'm learning a lot. And like I said, I'm grateful for being a part of this
Grateful.
group.
Sorry.
And when are you going to be finished?
Hopefully I will be able to stay on board, but the
when does
fellowship
your
itself,
And when does your master's?
my master's will be completed in May.
So then you're going to,
I look to still continue to do this work and
Yeah.
be a part of the group,
right,
despite.
right.
Maya has brought an enormous amount to this work. I mean, you have to think about what it's like to sit in court and observe the experience of young people and families every day in family court and in criminal
Oh, I
court.
know,
It's
yeah.
incredibly challenging, and you know the insights that she's brought from this work, the observations and the sort of connections across boroughs has just brought an enormous amount to our interpretation of what Raise the Age means, what it's really the lived experience is like for people.
The powerlessness that you see for families and kids, I mean, it's an overwhelming fright. Even that is frightening, so you can't imagine what the detention itself is. It's, so what is the youngest that you find that can go into the system? Can they take a 6-year-old?
7?
Yeah, I mean, you hear stories.
You know, we can arrest 7-year-olds in New York, and when we think about Raise the Age, there were communities of kids that we left out of that law.
Yeah.
You know, we continue to be able to arrest and prosecute in family court children as young as 7. And it's something that we're really trying to work on in Albany. I mean, there's an opportunity like New York and California to either really end the arrest of young children
Yeah.
or to limit it substantially
I
because
mean,
of
how many young children do they arrest?
It's a small number. It's probably I don't know the exact number, but it's probably in the dozens when you think about children under 12. But some of those kids are spending a night or two at least in detention, which is unimaginable to me.
Terrible, unbelievable.
10-year-old,
Yeah.
9-year-old.
So, Professor, we haven't included you at all. Are you learning a lot from this project?
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, and Maya said it best. I mean, the Youth Justice Research Collaborative, which we're all part of, is really about holding our government, holding policies, holding policymakers, and, you know, our legislation accountable, and that's what is never done. You know, Raise the Age is a huge policy, and there are other huge policies, but what is rare and unique about this is that we are now spending 2 or more years saying, how is it being implemented? Is it being implemented as it's supposed to be? Are there unintended consequences? And we're learning a huge amount. You know, we're not only seeing it in courts, but we're sending out a survey to public defenders. We're speaking to young people who are directly affected by Raise the Age and the juvenile justice system. We're essentially looking at all of those who are, all the stakeholders, all the people in this system, and examining how this policy is rolling
And the
out.
families.
And the
not-
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But were you aware of all this stuff? I'm just always interested.
Yeah.
I-
I have definitely been aware. I mean, it's hard
Yeah.
not to be aware, particularly
Right.
as New York has been so behind other states. You know, it becomes so horrendous to hear these stories as we have over the last decade. And so when Kate and Julia came to me, we really need to, you know, use social science, use the tools of social science in a collaborative, participatory way to evaluate whether this thing is actually working as it's saying, and also what needs to, you know, advocate for what needs to change. And I was ready to jump on that because of how important it is. And we get to work with people like Maya. You know, the whole point of this collaborative is that we bring lots of
Everybody in.
expertise in. Folks from CUNY, lawyers, people, you know, experts in policy, students, researchers.
So where did you get the idea to go to him?
Well, Brett is Brett is like famous in the field.
Oh,
He has
I
been
see.
working on
Okay.
police reform. He's
Right.
really in the world
Right.
of sort of criminal justice research in
so,
the city. Brett has done, and he's
So,
particularly
from Stop and Frisk and all.
yeah, and he's particularly well known for working really, truly collaboratively and respectfully with communities, with young people, with people who've been in the system, with family members. And it was really because of that sort of background and expertise and reputation that he had that we really wanted him to be involved in this project, and we're thrilled when he sort of has sort of took it on to the degree that he did. And I think because of his leadership, he's been able to bring in brilliant grad students, and he's also,
Great.
you know, it's attracted brilliant people like Maya, and also sort of other members of the team.
So, Brett, we haven't talked about the collaborative or anything, but we're doing it. Our next week's program
That's right. I'm
is going to
really
be a
excited.
continuation of this, and it's going to be all you and people working.
All me and the real experts who
we
can
have a
talk
few
about
other
the
people coming,
experience.
but I
Yep.
can't thank you enough. And congratulations on the fact that this happened, and I'm glad that you are now continuing with it.
Yeah.
And let's take the little ones out.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Get them
Yes.
right.
Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.